Okay, so let me share my screen. We have here. Okay. So, what were the things we discussed last time? Last time we talked about perfect, active, and passive verbs, right? In the indicative mood. Okay. So, for the perfect, we have um, tense identifier and also the reduplication. So all we have to do, we have to remember that in perfect active, the tense identifier is ka, then the kappa here. Then we have the reduplication, the doubling of the verbal consonant of the verb stem. Okay, I mean, yeah, the consonant of the verb stem. Okay, the reduplication. Okay, so we have here liluka, lilukas, liloken, liluka, lilukamen, lilukate, lelokan. So these are the forms of the perfect active. Now, what about for the passive? We don't have tense identifier, but what we have is what? The reduplication of the consonant of
Morning, sir.
the stem. Okay. Now, um, so for example, we have here liluka. I have loosed. Then lilukas, you have loosed. Liloken, he, she, it has loosed. For the plural, lilukamen, we have loosed. Lilukate, you have loosed. Lilukasi, they have loosed. Then for the middle and passive, we have lelomai, I have loosed myself or I have been loosed. Lelosai, you have loosed yourself or you have been loosed. Then we have lilutai, he, she, it has loosed himself, herself, or itself. For the passive, it's he, she, it has been loosed. Then lilometa, then we have liluste, then we have liluntai. We have loosed ourselves, you have loosed yourselves, and they have loosed themselves. Okay? So those are the things we learned last time. Now, let's move to a new topic. Okay, we have here. Let's start. Our topic this week is all about participles. Okay, let's start with present active, middle passive participle. So let's start with the present active participle. What is a participle? Participles are very common in the New Testament. No? So, and it is impossible to work with New Testament Greek without knowing how to recognize and translate the participle. A lot of participles you can see in the New Testament. So they are very important. Okay. So what is a participle? A participle is a verbal adjective. Okay. So a verbal adjective. So it has a form of a verb, but it functions as an adjective. That is, it is part verb and part adjective. What does this mean? Both words in this definition are important. We have verbal and adjective. So there are two components in participles. So we have here first, all participles are built on verbs. So you have to remember this, that participles are built on verbs, not nouns, not pronouns, not adjectives, nor adverbs. This means that any verb can become a participle. So you have to take note of that. So participles are built on verbs, the form of verbs. The second, as an adjective, however, the verbal idea is used to do what adjectives do. So what is the function of adjectives? Oh, yeah, adjectives are modifiers. They modify a noun, no? Or they sometimes functioning as a noun, as independent noun, or sometimes they could be used as a predicate. Okay, so you have to take note of this, no? So modify or clarify a noun. This means that the participle will have the same properties of an adjective, namely age, number, and gender. Okay? So they are what participles are verbal adjective. They are formed on verbs, yet they have qualities like adjective, case, number, and gender. For example, we have example here. This one. The man is singing. Okay? The man is singing. The word singing here is a verb. Okay? The man is singing. For the participle, it's the singing man has a good voice. So here, example one, singing is a verb. It tells you what is the man doing. However, in example two, we have here, this is example two, singing is an adjective. It means it's modifying man. Okay? The singing man. So giving or clarifying the quality or the characteristic of a, a man. Okay? So you have to distinguish between the two. Okay? So we have a participle. Look at the difference. Here, the man is singing. This means that this singing here is the action of the subject. So what is the man doing? He is singing. However, in participle, the singing man, so here the singing man, it clarifies what kind of person, no? It gives quality to the person, okay? Or describes the person, or describes the man. The singing man has a good voice, okay? So present active participle of Amy. The participle of Amy should be understood in the following way. Since the verb Amy means I am, or I be, or I exist, the participle means being. So the verb Amy means I am, but the participle meaning of Amy is being. Now, in the following English sentences, the verb I am becomes a participle by becoming an adjective. Make sure you recognize the distinction. So you have to recognize the distinction between the verb and the participle. Because again, participle, they are built on verbs. However, they have the characteristics of an adjective. It has gender, number, and case. For example, the verb, I am a teacher. Okay? Then the participle, the being man or the man who is my friend, or the man who is a teacher is my friend. So example one, is a verb. I exist as a teacher, while example number two, being is used as an adjective. Okay. Now the question is, how does the participle of Amy help me work with the New Testament Greek? So how does the participle of Amy help you in the New Testament Greek? It helps simply because the application of the tense identifiers to the participle of Amy makes it possible to recognize all participles in active voice as well as the passive voice of the aorist. So here, so you have to remember, you have to memorize the endings of the participle of Amy, because the endings of the participles of Amy, they form the foundation of all participles in all tenses. Okay? So you have to memorize them. So these are the forms of Amy, no? Participle of Amy for the active. Okay? This is for the active voice. So for the masculine, we have the neuter, the feminine, we have singular and plural. No? The same. Remember, participle, they have the characteristics of an adjective, and these are the characteristics of adjectives. We have the masculine, the neuter, the feminine. We have also the case. We have the nominative, the genitive, the dative, and accusative. For the singular, also for the plural, we have nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative. Now, if you notice here that the endings, okay, look at the endings. What do you notice? The endings of participle Amy active voice, they what? Similar to the third declension, no? Endings of the third declension of nouns, pronouns, adjectives, and yeah, here participles. Okay? So they have the same endings with the third declension. Still remember, we have for the masculine, we don't have an ending. Then we have for the genitive, we have os, iota, then alpha, s, on, c, us. No? So here, these are the endings of active participle, okay, of Amy. So on tos, on te, on ta, on tes, on ton, o si, on tas. For the neuter on, then they have the same endings. For the genitive and the dative, no, a neuter and masculine, they have the same endings, and for the accusative, it's still on. While for the plural, we have onta, then we have onton, usi, ontas, unta. For the feminine, we have usa, useis, usay, usan, usay, uson, usais, usas. Okay? So, if you still remember, I told you that you have to memorize the third declension, the first and second declension, and the third declension nouns many times. I told you that many times. If you memorize those endings, then it would be a lot easier for you to memorize these things. Okay? That's the only way to pass the subject, memorize the endings and the vocabulary. While the passive or the middle or passive participle form of Amy is we have this one. Okay? So we have um for the nominative we have menos. Okay? So look at the index here. You have the first and second endings. The first and second declension endings. So you have os, u, o, on, ois, us. Okay, then we have for the feminine a, s, a, n, I, on, is, us. So again, no, you the endings of the middle passive participle, they are based on the first and second declension endings, while the active participle of Amy, their endings are based on the third declension endings. Okay? So, for the nominative form, for the middle passive participle, you have menos. Okay? If you see this word in a verb, or this ending is attached to a verb, it means that that particular word is what? A participle. And it is in the middle or passive voice. We have menos, mino, mino, minon. We have minoi, mino, minos, minois, and menus. Then we have menon, then menu, mino, menon. Then mena, menon, minois, mena. Then we have mene, menes, mene, minain, minai, minon, minais, minas. Okay? So you have to memorize this in order for you to know the to identify if a particular word is a participle or a verb or not. Okay. Now, for example, we have here present active participle of luo. Okay. So you have here luo is a verb. Remember, it's a verb, and participle is built on verbs. So here we have example, we have the nominative, we have the genitive, we have the dative, and the accusative. Okay, so you might wonder why is it GA and DIL. Okay, in some books, they follow the 8 case system. We have the nominative, we have the genitive, we have the ablative, you have the directional, we have locomotive, and uh, indicative, and we have accusative. For the 5 case system, DIL is one group, and genitive and ablative is one group. Okay, so here for the masculine nominative, if you look at the the active endings of participle of ame, you have on, right? Ontos, onti, onta, right? Then we have for the feminine, we have usa, usays, usay, usan. And for the neuter, we have ontos, onti, on. Anyway, masculine, for the genitive and the dative, they have the same, no? Between masculine and neuter, they have the same endings. So you have here, so you add the stem, we have the stem of luo, now you have lu, this is the verbal stem. Then you add the ending of the participle active, you have luon, okay? Luon, luontos, luonti, luonta, luusa, luusays, luusay, luusan, luon, luontos, luonti, luon. Okay? So, before you ask questions, let me finish first this discussion, and after that you can ask question. Okay? Um, then we have for the plural, we have loontes, loonton, loosi, loontas, luusay, luuson, luusays, luusas, luonta, luonton, luusi, luontas. So again, you don't have to memorize the 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 entire form, but you only memorize the endings. No? Memorize the endings. This one. These are the endings. So if you memorize the endings, you can identify the function or the case, the gender, and the number of a participle. Okay, so you have this one. Then we have for the middle and the passive, we have here, again, we have the endings are minos, mino, mino, minon, minoy, minon, minois, minos. Okay, so look at here. You have the present, middle, and passive participle of luo. So for the masculine, for the nominative, singular, you have luominos. So you have here, okay, menos. Then menu, okay, luomino. Then we have luomeno. Then we have luominon, okay. And also we have for the feminine, it's loomene, loomenes, loomene, and loomenain. For the neuter, luominon, loomenu, luomeno, and luominon. Okay, that's for the singular. But for the plural, we have luominoy, luomenon, luomenois, luomenois, and loomenus. Okay, then we have for the feminine here, loominai, loomenon, loomenais, and loomenas. Then for the neuter, we have luomena, luomenon, luomenois, and luomina. Okay, so again, the endings minoy, minon, minos, minois, minus, minay, minon, minais, minas, mina, minon, minois, mina. So the key to um, what do you call this? The key to learning is repetition and memorization. So you have to repeat memorizing these forms uh, at least 20 times. No? At least 20 times. You have to memorize this one. There's no other way. Okay. Now, characteristics of participle. Now, what are those characteristics? The participle is a verbal adjective since it has characteristics of verbs and adjectives. This combination causes the participle to become highly inflected with many forms. Okay? So the participle is built on the verb stem and has adjectival endings like an adjective. As a verbal adjective, the participle has three qualities. Okay? As these qualities, rather. We have the verbal qualities and we have adjectival qualities. So what makes participle a little bit difficult? Because it has two qualities, the verbal and the adjectival. Okay? So the verbal qualities, it has tense and voice, but it doesn't have mood or person. Then may take a direct object, may be an adverbial modifier, may be modified by an adverb. Okay? While adjectival qualities, we have it has a case, gender, and number, maybe a substantive, or maybe an adjective modifier. Okay? So now, what is the function of a participle? Okay? Why do we need to study participle? What is the function of participle? So here, there are two functions. We have the verbal function and the adjectival function. Remember that participles, they have two qualities, verbal and adjectival. Therefore, they also function as what? As a verb and as an adjective. Okay? So only for Greek tenses have participles. Okay? What are those? We have the present, the aorist, the future, and the perfect. We don't have imperfect. Okay? What we have, it's only present, aorist, future, and perfect. The matter of voice is the same in the participle as any other verbal form. Okay? Tense in the participles has to do with the kind of action in the same manner as verbs. Take note, participles, the tense in the participles has to do with the kind of action. Remember the tense. What are the tenses? We have the present, the aorist, the future, and the perfect. In participles, what? The tense has something to do or has to do with the kind of action. The time of action in participles is different from the verb in that it is determined by the time of the main verb. So take note of this. The participles, the time of the action of participles is determined by the time of the main verb. So participles are not cannot be considered as main verb in a sentence. Okay? So they are not functioning as main verb because the time of the action is determined by the time of the main verb. However, the tense of the participle denotes the kind of action. Now, it says here, the following summary indicates that the relationship between participles and the verb. The aorist and perfect participles indicate action antecedent to action of the main verb. What is antecedent? It means before the time of the action of the main verb. Okay? So, the aorist participles and the perfect participles indicate action antecedent. So, it means that their action happened first or happens first before the action uh, the action of the main verb happens. Okay? For example, we have here the man, okay. Ho anthropos ipon tauta blepe ton korean. So we have here anthropos is the subject, ipon is a participle. Remember, you have here own, no? Own. What does it tell you? It is in active voice. However, ipon is in the aorist, no? Aorist. This is second aorist verb, ipon. So participle is the participle for aorist of this verb is ipon. Okay, ipon tauta blipe ton koreon. Blipe is the verb, the main verb. Okay, what is the tense of the main verb here of blipe? What is the tense? Can someone parse blepe? Who wants to try? Kindly parse blepe. Huh?
Ano, sir? Active voice?
Parse. How to parse a verb? Ah, sige, tagbalik-balik ani ba? Agyapon tani. Parse. So when you parse a verb, you give the tense, you give the voice, you have to give the mood, the number, the number, uh, the 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 person, and the lexical form.
Ano, sir? Present
Oh,
tense, sir.
okay, present.
Tense.
Then the
Singular,
voice.
third person. Active voice, sir.
Okay, the mood.
Mood is um,
Indicative.
Okay, indicative. Person.
Single.
third
Now,
person, sir.
okay, third person. And what is the lexical form? The lexical entry.
Singular.
Okay,
Blero. Blero,
singular.
sir.
The lexical entry. What is the lexical entry?
Blipo.
Blepo.
Blipo. Okay, very good. No. So this is present. Uh, present. And also, according here, that the aorist perfect participles indicate antecedent action to the main verb. This is our main verb. Okay, the main verb is blipe in the present. So our translation now is the man, okay, who said these things is seeing the Lord. Okay, blipe is seeing. Okay, or you can say the man who said these things sees the Lord. Okay, so it means that the man here already saw the things or said something, and after saying something, he sees the Lord. So the action is what? Um, the the action of the participle indicates what? An antecedent to the main verb. Another example, we have ipusa tauta exultain ekton oikon. Exultain. Okay, parse exultain. What is the tense of exulting?
Imperfect, sir.
Okay, imperfect. Okay, and uh, what do you call this? What is the lexical entry of exulting? The lexical form of exulting.
Ego ba, sir?
Ergomai.
Ego man.
Okay, ergomai. So this one, this is the main verb. So you have to look at the main verb. Then we have ipusa. Ipusa, it's here, no? The ending is usa. What is the gender? What is the gender? What is
Feminine.
okay, feminine, no? Because of usa. If you look at above, no? Active. Okay? it's feminine. So ipusa tauta exultin ecton oikon. Okay? So we have here when she had said this thing. So iposa is when. Okay? Why we have uh an adverb here? We will discuss that later, below the adverbial function. Okay? So we have here when she had said these things, she went out of the house. So it tells that this action, okay, the action of the participle is antecedent to the main verb. The main verb is exultant. She went out of the house. So she went out of the house after only when the woman said things. Okay. So when she had said these things, she went out of the house. So the participle aorist and perfect what? They denote an antecedent action to the main verb. Okay? Another example is ho anthropos ho ipon tauta iltin iston oikon. Okay? So the man who had said these things went into the house. Okay? Now, the present participle. Okay? The present participle indicates action simultaneous with the action of the main verb. So it means that when we say simultaneous, happens at the same time. For example, who agapon ton adelphon autu in to fute mene. So we have who agapon, it's a participle, the one loving the brother of him. This is a literal translation, okay? The one loving the brother of him in the light abides, okay? Mene is what? Mene is the main verb. We have present, okay? We have present tense here, and we have here a participle. So the action happens simultaneous with the main verb. So it's the smooth translation now is what? The one loving his brother abides in the light. So this is now the translation. The one loving his brother abides in the light. So we have literal translation or rough translation. Maybe by the way, some of you in the assignments that I ask you to do, some just give a literal translation. No, it's wrong. Okay? It should be you have to translate. Of course, if you will do rough translation, then you have to do smooth translation. Smooth translation is based on English grammar rules. For example, this one, we have the one loving the brother of him. Of him is actually his. Okay, his. So the one loving his brother abides in the light. So
Sir.
if yes,
How about sa above example, sir, katong tulo ka buok, sir? Usa man na, sir, pag literal translation, sir?
hmm? Literal translation. Literal translation is you give the equivalent meaning to each word. For example, you have the, okay? You have the, we have anthropos, man. You have ipon, uh, who said. Then we have tauta, these things, blepe, blepe. He sees or he is seeing. So you write he is seeing or he sees. Then we have the, then we have Lord. Okay? That's the literal translation, word for word you give. However, this one is the smooth translation because here the pronoun of blipe, you do not use the implied pronoun of blipe because you have the subject now. Okay, so that's why you do not put here he is seeing. You do not say the man who said these things, he is seeing the Lord. No, that's wrong because it's redundant. You have the subject, the man who is saying these things, then you put pronoun he, then it's redundant. So you are violating the English grammar rules. So that's why you have to be very careful. That's why, you have to master English grammar. That's why our department asks you to have or to enroll advanced English grammar. Do not think that decision of the department it's only a waste of time. This is to actually to improve your English, because if you are good in English grammar, you don't have problem with Greek and Hebrew. Okay? So you have to master English rules in order for you
Pwede
to
ra po na siya, sir.
master.
The man who said this is seeing the Lord.
Huh?
Um, okay ra gyapon na siya nga inguna na, sir. The man who said this is seeing the Lord.
Oh yes, because these things here it's implied. Okay? Implied. Why things? Because this one it's neuter. Okay? So actually tauta is this only, but of course it is implied that this is neuter, that's why you have things here. Okay? Yeah, it's okay. The man who said this is saying the Lord. It's okay. It's a good it does not violate the English grammar rules. Okay? So it's okay. Now, for the future, okay, what is the relationship between the future participle with the main verb? The future participle indicates action subsequent. What is subsequent? It means after, okay, the action of the main verb. Take note, the aorist and the perfect, their action is antecedent, is before the main verb, while the present is simultaneous or at the same time with the main verb, while future is subsequent, is after the action of the main verb. For example, we have ide, gar, ek, our case, who is sustains, isen, oi, may, pisyoontes, kaites, esten, who, paraduson, auton. Okay? So you have here participles, uh, this one, pisyoontes. Okay? Pisyoontes is a participle. Okay? So the literal translation is he had known for from beginning Jesus, who are the ones not believing and who is the one will betray him. If you look at this one, literal translation do not follow the English grammar rule. That's why it's no. If this is only your answer, it's wrong. You are only giving the rough translation or literal translation. You have to rearrange now. What is how do you rearrange the translation? Okay, so you have here the smooth translation. It's what? For Jesus, to look at here, for Jesus had known from the beginning the ones who did not believe and the one who will betray him. Okay? Sorry. For Jesus had known. Okay? For Jesus had known from the beginning the ones who did not believe and the one who will betray him. So it means that this one, the the participle or the action of the participle is subsequent. Okay? So a day is uh, already happened before uh, pisyoontes, no? The participle. So Jesus had already known from the beginning. Okay? So the action of the participle is subsequent. Okay? Believing. Okay? Believing is subsequent because Jesus had already known before. Okay? The action already took place and the participle followed denotes a subsequent action to the main verb. Now, the adverbial function, okay? The adverbial function of the participle. So, Again, the verbal function, we have this one, the relationship between the participles and the action of the participle to the main verb. For the adverbial here, the adverbial use of participle demonstrates the verbal aspect and expresses when, how, why, on what condition, by what means, or under what circumstances an action took place. So that's adverbial function. So when, how, why, what. Okay. For example, we have here Kai Ilton Idenos Eligsay Ton Cosmon Pere Hamartias Kai Pere di Cayusone Pere Crisios. So, and when he comes, we have here Ilton. Okay, Ilton. And when he comes, that one, he will convict the world about sin and about righteousness, about judgment. No, that's a literal translation. For the smooth translation, and when he comes, that one will convict the world about sin and righteousness and judgment. Okay, so we have Elton when he comes. So we have this participle here functions adverbially. Okay, so when uh, what they call this, an adverb of time. Okay, the participle in this tense conveys the time of the main verb and is called temporal. Participle is one more prominent adverbial uses in the New Testament, but many others appear. So a lot of functions, no, of participle for the adverbial. So anyway, we will discuss more on the adverbial function of participles when we come to Greek too. Okay. Now the adjectival function of the participle. So we have attributive use, we have the substantive use, and predicative use. No? Remember the adjective, we discussed last time that adjective functions as attributive, substantive, and predicative. Since participles have qualities or characteristics of adjectives, that's why they also function as attributive, substantive, and predicative. Okay? What are the attributive use of participles? Okay? So, in this manner, the participle may be used as a modifier. So, when the participle functions as attributive or it is used as attributive, it functions as a modifier. When used in this construction, the participle is always in the attributive position. What does it mean? When we say that the participle is always at the attributive position. What is the attributive position in the adjective? How will you know that the adjective is in attributive position? Based on our discussion last time. It's what? How will you know? When
Definite
the
article, sir.
yes, very good. When the adjective has a definite article, then that adjective functions as or it's in attributive position. Now, the same as the adjective, also in the participles, when the participles have definite article, then that participle function or those participles function as modifier or they are in the attributive position. For example, ho didaskon apostolos or ho apostolos ho didaskon. Didaskon here has a definite article. Okay? Apostolos is the noun, while didaskon is a participle. Okay, we have on. Okay? On. Then we have also here, didaskon, we have participle. Okay? So, ho didaskon apostolos or ho apostolos didaskon means the apostle who is teaching. Okay? So, in attributive function or attributive use, you translate or you use who, no, to modify the subject. Okay, to modify the subject. The apostle, it's apostolos, who is teaching. So modifying the apostle, giving characteristic of the apostle or describing the apostle. Okay, so That's why the translation, it's the apostle who is teaching. In translating participles, its position is crucial. So take note of this. When the participle is in the attributive position immediately after the article, translate it as a relative clause. So that's how you have ho. Okay, translate it as a relative clause when what the participle is in attributive position immediately after the article. Okay, in this case we have here article top, then we have what, participle, then we have the noun. Okay, for example, blipo ton apostolon ton legontai tauta. So blipo is I see. We have ton apostolon, we have the apostles. Then what? Ton legonta. So you have the definite article, then you have the what? The participle, we have unta. So onta. We have the verb stem is leg from the word lego. Then we have unta. The ending is unta. So this is a participle. You translate that as what? A relative clause. Why? Because the participle is followed, no? The participle follows the definite article. So I see the apostle who is saying these things. Okay? This tells which apostle is saying. When participle is in the predicate position. No. So now, when the participle is in a predicate position without the article, translating it in an adverbial sense. So when the participle doesn't have a definite article, you translate that participle in adverbial sense. Okay? So, for example, blipo ton apostolon ligonta tauta, I see the apostle while he is saying these things. Or you can say, I see the apostle when, you can also use when or after, it depends upon the following phrase. Okay? So in this case, it is while is used. Okay? So that's why you have to take note, if there's no article of the participle, translate that as adverbial. Okay? If there is a participle, then it's either attributive use or substantive use. Okay? The second one, substantive use. As an adjective, the participle may function as nominal substantive, just as ho agathos means the good man, hu luon means the losing man, or translated into standard English, the man who loses. Examples, hu ligon idon, ten matitain, the one who was speaking saw the disciples. So here, hooligan here is functioning as substantive. Why substantive? Because we don't have explicit subject, and the participle here functioning as a noun, functioning as the subject. Okay, it is, that's why it is used as substantive. Okay, the one who was speaking saw the disciple. In this case, the participle is the subject of the sentence. Blepo ton ligusan tauta. I see the woman saying these things. Here, the participle is the direct object. Okay, blepo ten ligusan. So in this example, the participle functions as a direct object. Okay? Now, the predicative use, just as the adjective may stand with a linking verb, an adjectival participle may have a similar function. This kind of participle completes the meaning of the statement. The sentence below illustrates the predicative use of the participle in periphrastic construction. Okay? Periphrastic construction is the use of a finite verb with a participle in a compound tense form. Often this finite verb will be aiming. So here, um, uh, you will know that a participle is in a predicative use. Sometimes is what it is. Most often it is what do you call this? It appears in a periphrastic construction. No, periphrastic construction is the use of the finite verb. So the participle is used with the finite verb. When we say finite verb, verbs that implies person, no? So we have all the tenses in the indicative, the subjunctive, and the imperative. They are finite verbs. Okay, they are finite verbs. They what? They have persons. Okay, so most of the time in a periphrastic construction, participle is what? Connected with, or what do you call this? Connected with the finite verb with participle in a compound tense form. And usually the verb is a me. You know, for example, kai ain. So ain is what? Imperfect form of a me. So ain ekbalon daimonion. Okay. So and he was casting out a demon. Okay, and he was casting out. So you have this one. Ain ikbalon is a periphrastic construction that the participle is connected with what? The verb to be a me. Okay? So take note of that. No? That's a predicative use. Okay? Predicative use. Now, um, we're almost done. No? We're almost done. Let's this one, translation of the voice or active voice participles. So if without the article, this is how you will translate. For the present, loon, okay, loon, it's losing, okay? Loon is losing. It's adverbial, no, without the article. For the future, luson will be losing. Look at here, you have the tense identifier, no, tense identifier of future active. We have lusas, having loosed. This is aurists. Then we have lilokos, having loosed. This is a perfect. Okay, perfect participle, aorist participle. We have future and we have present. Okay, with the article. No, if with the article you translate is what? The one losing, or you can translate this in a relative clause, who, no? You use who is losing or who are losing. Then we have who lose on, the one who will lose. Then you have uh, who loses, the one having lost, and lilokos, or who lilokos, the one having lost. This is all in the active. We have the present, future, aorist, and passive, perfect rather. We have present, future, aorist, and perfect. Okay. Now, of course, these are all in the nominative. What about if in the genitive and dative? So, for example, in the genitive case of participle of luo, it would be luontos, and its translation would be of the one losing. So, if it's in genitive, you only add of, no? Of or from, of the one losing or from the one losing. In the case of dative, to or for, at, you can use to, for, at, with, by, in the one losing. Okay, you add these prepositions. Okay, if it's in the dative, but for genitive, of or from. Okay, now for the middle or passive, what is the translation? Without the article, again, it's adverbial. Without the article, it's adverbial. Translation, we have being loosed. For the future, will be loosed, having loosed oneself, having been loosed. So we have here, O menos. So menos, sa menos. So look at here. You have, this is for the present. This is for the future. We still have sigma. Okay. Then we have sa for the aorist. Still remember our discussion, the tense identifier in finite verbs under aorist and future. We have sigma. Then we have lilominous. It's, we don't have connecting. We don't have tense identifier. We don't have connecting vowel. What we have is reduplication of the consonant of the verb stem, the lambda. So lilominous. So having been loosed. The translation with the article. So you have the one being loosed, the one who will be loosed, the one having been loosed, having, sorry, the one having loosed himself, and the one having been loosed. Okay? So also this one, the chart here, you have to familiarize this one. Okay? So these are the translations. Okay? So for now, we are discussing the present. Okay? On Thursday, we will discuss the future participle, the forms of future participle. You have now the background of the future. You have the sigma. No, the tense identifier is the sigma. We have luson, lusominos, and lotisominos. Okay, so omenos, they are what? They are uh, the endings of passive, of middle or passive participles, while ontos, onte, onta, those are endings of active participles. Okay? So questions? Okay. Another question?
Sir, sa ako lang clarify sir ba kay kung saan pagkabalo nimo gani sir kung first oris or second oris ni ang isa ka ano sir word.
Go back sa atong discussion sa orist. How will you know? No? How will you know? Go back to our discussion sa first orist. I already mentioned that we have the tense identifier. What is the tense identifier of orist? First orist. What is the tense identifier of first orist?
Sas.
Sa.
Sas.
Okay, sa, se, sa means sa ti, san. So that's the only way for you to identify the orists because of the sa. If it has no sa, okay, if a verb doesn't have a tense identifier sa, then you suspect that verb is either imperfect or second aorist. Okay? And also in the vocabulary, I already gave to you, or I already reflected on the lesson, the common second aorist verbs. So you have to memorize those second aorist verbs. Okay? So that's the only way. Now, if you
Pwede
notice,
explain sir.
oh, anyway, yeah, maybe we will discuss this last time, because in the participle aorist, you will not see an augment. Okay, there's no augment in the aorist participles. Anyway, we will discuss this next time. Okay, so it's I'm telling you now in advance, because in the finite verb, okay, in indicative, in the subjunctive, and the imperative, in a finite verb, they have augment, right? You can say an augment telling you that this verb happens in the past, or it's a secondary tense. However, in participle, in aorist, it doesn't have an augment, because the time of the action of participle is determined, okay, is determined to the time of the action of the main verb. That's why it doesn't have an augment. Yes, follow-up question? Ay, follow-up question? Wala na? Okay? So, sige lang, I know nga loading paghihapon, no? So, that's why read the lessons many times and review this presentation, no? Many times so that you will para mag-sink in ang lessons. Okay?
Makaw man atong utok, sir.
Nga naman ginagyon. Kay una, dili mo ganato ni lingwahe.
Thank you sa pagsabot, sir.
We have
Organic,
two
sir.
challenges
Kayo,
here.
sir.
First,
Sa may
the Greek
technique, sir,
language.
technique.
Okay? Technique, read, familiarize, and understand. Read many times, at least 20 times.
Sige sir,
That's the only way.
review na
That's the
tayo.
technique. That's the only way. Wala gilain na
Mayo sir, kaya na kay record sir. Maminaw tayo ang record nimo para ma-kuan jud, ma-embedded ba?
Okay, so thank you so much, no? So, stop na ako ng record kay manaman tong klase. So, I hope
Nasa din eh.
nga dili ta mo undang og study ha.
Yes, pastor.